Okay. Good morning, everyone. I think we're about ready to get started here. We'll have Darius go through and do our roll call for us, please.
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. Dwayne McFall, Central Front Range.
Wayne McFall, present. Thanks, sir.
Cody Davis, Grand Valley. Dana Brosig, Grand Valley.
Dana Brosig is here. Thank you.
Thanks. Ray Bird, Greater Denver. Austin Ward, Greater Denver. Anybody else from Greater Denver?
Jacob Rieger, I'm here.
All right, fantastic. Vince Rogowski, Gunnison Valley.
Here.
Brian Pettit, Intermountain. Bentley Henderson, Intermountain. Okay. Liz Reed, North Front Range.
It's Hyde. I'm here.
Oh, Hyde. I'm sorry. My apologies.
That's all righty.
Brian Cervinic, Northwest TPR.
Yep, present.
Wendy Pettit, Pueblo. Dennis Forrest, Pueblo. Anybody else from Pueblo?
Eva's here.
Eva. All right, perfect. Vern Heersink, San Luis Valley.
Here.
Brian Blasey, South Central. Mitch Wardell, South Central.
Yeah, this is Mitch Wardell, South Central.
Okay. Ron Cook, Southeast. Stephanie Gonzalez, Southeast. Colton Blacks, Southern Ute. Heather Alvarez, Southwest. Sarah Dotson Hill, Southwest.
Yep. Morning, Darius. I'm here.
Good morning. Kevin Ross, Upper Front Range.
Good morning, Darius. Glad to be here.
Good morning. Manuel Hart, Ute Mountain Ute. Bernadette Cuthair, Ute Mountain Ute. Brendan Adams, Ute Mountain Ute. Holly Williams, Vice Chair, Pikes Peak.
Yes, I'm here, as is John Leosados, and it looks like Lisa Gagnon.
Fantastic. And finally, Gary Beatty, Chair, Eastern TPR.
I'm here.
And we do have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Got Barbara McLaughlin, Southwest. She's new. Thank you.
Thank you.
And this is Dana Wood from Intermountain.
All righty. Anybody else that was missed or joined as we were going through? Okay. Thank you. We didn't have any pre-registered public comments. Do we have anybody now with any public comments? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to approval of the June meeting minutes that were sent out. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the June meeting?
This is Commissioner Ross. I would move to approve.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second, Burton Hersink, Alamos County.
Okay, thank you. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes as presented? Okay, seeing no additions or corrections. Is there anyone that opposes the approval of the minute? Seeing none, the minutes will be approved as presented. Thank you. CDOT update and current events. Herman.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. A couple things this month. First, and I hope I'm not stealing anybody's thunder by this, but a big congratulations to Elizabeth Relford, who's our new North Front Range MPO Executive Director. We're excited to have her back in STAC meetings and in a new position. So congratulations, Elizabeth. On less bright notes, we do have a special session that's been called to start August 21st. We knew that was coming. Topics include fiscal issues, another $1 billion worth of fiscal issues, also healthcare, food security, artificial intelligence. CDOT's not implicated in this special session, but we never say never. We do still have some general funds that go to different pots here at CDOT. So we'll be watching for that, but at this point, we think that's okay. You also probably heard, I think it was yesterday, the governor called for hiring freeze for state employees effective August 27th. That'll run through the end of the year. That's certainly impactful to CDOT, but it's really important to note that this doesn't apply to our most essential workers, which means that the freeze will affect less than half of CDOT's positions. All of our maintenance positions are essential. We'll continue to hire those as normal, and it's important that we do. This is when we start pointing our way towards hiring those folks for our winter plowing operations. So we're glad that the governor made sure we excluded those essential workers from the freeze. TC this month, I can't remember if I mentioned this last month or not, but we have several new commissioners. For those of you that have not already heard, Barbara McLaughlin, who's on the meeting today, is our new commissioner in Southwest Colorado. Juan Marcano is our new commissioner for Douglas and Arapahoe counties. Elise Jones, a former STAC member, is our new commissioner for Boulder, Broomfield, and Adams counties. We still do have a vacancy for the commission district that covers the city and county of Denver. So if you know anybody, ask them to apply. For workshops this month, we're going to give the TC a review of the CDOT disposal process. We always have 2 or 3 of these on the consent agenda, and new commissioners particularly, given that we have some of those on board, we thought it was appropriate to kind of circle back, let commissioners know what the process is that leads up to those disposal requests. We're also going to talk about the statewide plan. We'll give a rail update, an update on the clean transit enterprise activities. I think, as you know, they've put out their NOFO to transit agencies. So in case commissioners hear about that, we want to let them know what that's all about. And then we'll also give the TC an update on our rural roads program and the progress that we've made over the last few 10-year plans. So we're pretty proud of that. And so we want to make sure we highlight that and talk about it. That actually, Darius, that might be good to circle back and give that to STAC too. We're planning to give a similar presentation with our TLRC presentation that's coming up in a couple of weeks. So we have that in the can, and might be easy to give that to a variety of groups. The other thing that I'll mention, I'm going to ask Sean Smith to jump on and weigh in here too. Sean's our director of maintenance and operations, but we haven't seen the huge, massive fires that we've seen in previous years, but man, it has been a bad fire season this year. Today is probably a reasonable comparison of what's been happening this summer. Right now, Colorado 13 around Meeker is closed in both directions due to wildfire. Colorado 347 around Montrose is closed in both directions due to wildfires. US 40 in Moffat County for about 50 miles between Blue Mountain and Mayville was closed in both directions until I think about midnight last night due to wildfires. We're crossing our fingers that none of these turn into the really big ones that we've seen, but we certainly have had impacts on the system. So I see Darius has his hand raised, and then I think we have Sean on. So Chair, I don't know if you want to have Sean speak or if Darius has a question that we can answer.
Yeah. Go ahead, Darius.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we will be happy to put that on for that presentation on for the next STAC meeting in September, if you would like.
Yeah, I think that would be good. So,
okay, we will do that.
Yeah. And then Sean, did you have anything else to add on the fires and things, update on any of that?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, just adding to what Herman, talked about these fires, is that most of these fires right now are occurring on the western slope, and it has no favorites. It's in the north, it's in the central, and it's in the south of the western side of Colorado. The biggest one we have right now is the Lee fire. It's at 45,000 acres and, hardly contained. The next biggest one would be the Turner Gulch fire and the Bright Draw fire. They're at 26,000 acres. So these are just fires that are impacting CDOT systems, Colorado 141, US 50, Colorado 13. We're going to go ahead and start getting everything together for where we're at statewide as well that are not having impacts to CDOT systems. However, these are ones that are having impacts on our systems. But yeah, that's it. Happy to take any questions if there is any.
Any questions for Sean? Group. Okay. See none. Anything else, Herman?
No, I'll just say Emily Hadaway's on annual leave this week. So my special session update was kind of our legislative report, but I'm happy to answer any questions on that either now or when that agenda item comes up later.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, moving on to Transportation Commission report. It was a fairly straightforward commission meeting. As Herman mentioned, we had the new commissioners sworn in, 3 new ones, and Terry Hart was reappointed, so was glad to have him returning. Would like to welcome the new commissioners, especially Barbara, since you're on the meeting. Welcome. For items, they covered the transit study, which we'll be hearing about later today. And then they also had the presentation on winter maintenance that we saw last month ourselves. One of the items that they pulled, as Herman mentioned, was on the property disposal. There was proposal to sell off a old park and ride location. They pulled that from the agenda to review that. Otherwise, there was some budget amendments. I lost my notes from the meeting, so I'm kind of flying off. Most of it's in the meeting packet, the good summary of the meeting. So I think I'll kind of leave it at that because I lost my notes somewhere along the way. So, but the meeting summaries are always good. So it's good to look at those that are sent out to the STAC members. So any questions for me from the commission meeting? All right, seeing none, we'll move into our TPR reports. Central Front Range.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was unable to attend the last meeting, but looking through the minutes and talking to the vice chair, they reviewed the CDOT 10-year plan, provided local feedback, awarded MMOF projects based on the updated funding. And then we had a change in administration from the Upper Arkansas Area Council of Governments to Canyon City, and that's in the process of going back to the UAA COG. So that's kind of a process in work, and appreciate all the help from CDOT on getting that accomplished. Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Grand Valley.
All right, so I'm actually taking this from Breckenridge as I'm at the CDOT Traffic Safety Summit with a bunch of other CDOT folks. So I might cut out a little early so I can take advantage of that. Sorry, my camera's a little goofy. So yeah, we've had a busy month. We had the ribbon cutting for our transit fleet maintenance facility on July 28th. It was about an $8+ million facility and had about 75 people celebrating that. So that was really exciting and a big step for our transit agency. We've also found someone to fill our transportation planner role. She'll start at the end of September, so you may see a new face starting in, I guess, October from the Grand Valley MPO. We didn't get rid of Rachel. We're just adding another transportation planner to our staff. So I think that's all I've had. Thank you.
Thank you. Greater Denver.
Yeah, thank you. Jacob Rieger, Multimodal Transportation Planning Manager at Dr. Cog. So our board has met twice since our last STAC meeting. So let me summarize kind of the things that we've done over the last couple months. We held a public hearing for our public engagement plan update. We approved proceeding with an application to DORA, the Colorado Department of Regulatory Agencies, for a licensure program for HVAC professionals as part of our Decarbonize Dr. Cog program. We received an update from staff on our community-based transportation planning program. We've completed 2 pilot plans and we're currently underway with 5 more. We announced the upcoming 60-day review period of our existing regional housing needs assessment. This is to allow local governments to use that assessment to fulfill Senate Bill 2024-174 requirements to complete a housing needs assessment. So our 60-day review period will be, we're in it now, July 14th through September 12th. And then at our July board meeting, we adopted the regional roadway system, which is our roadway network that we use for updating our 2050 regional transportation plan. We discussed our second year delayed TIP, our transportation improvement program projects, and adopted staff recommendations for moving each project forward. We received updates from staff on our small area forecast process, as well as our draft active transportation plan, which is now out for public comment through September 1st. And finally, we received an update from RTD on their annual Fast Tracks report to Dr. Cog. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Gunnison Valley, Vince.
Well, I've been out of commission for the last month and a half. I had prostate cancer, but that got cured. And so I'm 100% right now and back at it. So we're reviewing the 2050 plan now. Some of the draft items have been sent out and trying to see what's going on with that. We're reviewing again the MMOF because of the reduction in our original process. And so we're still working on that. And other than that, we're watching the wildfires, especially how it affects the Black Canyon. So that's all I got.
Thank you, Vince. Glad you're on the meds. Intermountain.
Hey, real quick, Chair, I just want to say, Vince, we're glad you're okay.
Thanks.
Intermountain.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. This is Dana Wood, the IMTPR Administrator from Northwest COG. We had our quarterly meeting on July 18th, and one decision that we made as a group was to allocate a little bit additional MMOF funding that was found through the process after the initial reduction to the two awardees that we originally awarded back in February. So the town of Parachute and the town of Avon each split around $130,000 that was squeezed back into each of their budgets. And that's the only update from me.
Okay. North Front Range.
Thank you. Really nothing to, oops, I'm not in that far. Goodness, I'm upper. I get too eager, Gary. I'm sorry.
Geez, and
North.
just take me over there. That's all right. Well, I thought I unscreened myself, but I guess you get my picture no matter what. We had a meeting July 10th, and we approved the emergency tip amendment to repair State Highway 60 in Johnstown. Apparently, they don't like a fountain there. So that was taken care of. And then at that same meeting, we had a planning council. We had presentations from the Front Range Passenger Rail District, as well as from the mobility program and the 2025 coordinated plan. And then I know Herman said it before, but this is also very exciting in the North Front Range to have Elizabeth Relford as our new executive director. And she did start August 4th. So she's brand new, as one would say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Northwest.
All right. Camera's not working. There we go. Okay, so since our last STAC meeting, we've actually had two Northwest TPR meetings. We had our scheduled one, quarterly one on, what was it, the 10th. And then we did sort of an emergency one, special session, we'll call it, on the 24th, where we approved two projects to dole out some of our MMOF money. So we awarded Routt County and Town of Hayden with projects. Look like they're great projects, kind of planning projects for the future, but should get the ball rolling on some good stuff. We still have $265,000 remaining within our MMOF budgets, so we've opened up another call for projects due August 25th. Let's see. We started working with CDOT's design team on the US 40 project through Fraser. That's a pretty exciting one for me since I live here. And also heard that some money was set aside for 2029 for that project to see it actually come to fruition. Then our next Northwest TPR meeting is set for October 16th. It'll be at 1 o'clock in Fraser in person. We'll be electing a new chair and vice chair, or potentially keeping us, I guess. After this year, we did change our bylaws to make them 2-year terms. So this will be the first round of 2-year chair positions. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you. Pikes Peak.
That would be me. I'm sorry. So we have been just watching our projects going this summer. We haven't really met since the last time. We did work with Shane Ferguson to adjust some of our projects, and we're going to be meeting tomorrow and then next Wednesday to talk transportation specifically and do a transportation workshop. And we really could just on the safety cap use a little bit of slowing down when people are driving. It seems like we're getting more and more fatalities. On our congressionally directed spending, we did get some money for something by Peterson Air Force Base on Peterson Road. And I'd have to remember the other road, but we had a fatality there a few years ago. And so when we got that money to fix that entrance, the congressman called the mother's daughter very specifically to tell her that that intersection was going to be done. So we're doing some good things down here with the resources we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Pueblo area.
Thanks. So we adopted a couple of our HSIP projects into our TIP. We also adopted a new public participation plan. We also had a transportation summit with the city of Pueblo and Pueblo County it was a combination of public outreach for our 2050 long range transportation plan and also our comprehensive safety action plan. And so we're still continuing outreach for our 2050 long range transportation plan. We also awarded additional funds to Pueblo Transit for Youth Ride Free from our MMOF. And that's it for us. Thanks.
Okay. San Luis Valley.
Morning, everybody. San Luis Valley TPR will meet in a couple weeks. We'll be taking a look at our MMOF allocations from the committee. We'll look at the presentation of the transportation plan and also a draft of our 10-year plan. Work on Colorado 112 and the Highway 160 wildlife underpass are close to completion. I think they're supposed to be done this summer. End of report.
Thank you. South Central.
Good morning, everyone. Last TPR meeting was July 24th in Trinidad. I personally did not make it to that one, but I have updates from it. Our 10-year plan is complete and we'll be starting the public comment period. The largest project we have currently is I-25 north of Trinidad, surface treatment from milepost 14 through 26.6 with striping, guardrail, minor bridge repair, and all guardrail has been completed. Paving operations and bridge rehab have commenced, completion expected in early fall, and the next TPR meeting will be in Walsenburg on October 23rd. And that is it.
Okay. Southeast.
I'm sorry, did you say Southeast?
Yes. There you
Okay. We have not a lot to update. We've had our meeting in July with our CDOT TPR group, and I think we're getting pretty close to our final update with regional transportation plan. And our next meeting won't be until October. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Southern Utes. Have anybody on? Okay, not seeing anybody. Southwest.
Good morning, Gary. We have not met since the last STAC meeting, but we have a few items to update. Our MMOF award letters have gone out and we're starting to move through the contract phase of those. And then also we wanted to just thank our outgoing commissioner, Mark Garcia, and then extend a very warm welcome to our new transportation commissioner, Barb McLaughlin. We're really excited to work with you in this new capacity. Archuleta County celebrated a ribbon cutting of their new transit facility at the end of June, sorry, and it is a really lovely facility, so we're excited for them. And then our regularly scheduled TPR meeting is for August 14th. We had some scheduling conflicts, so if anybody was eager to pop in on that meeting, note that it is August 20th instead. And that's my update.
Thank you. Upper Front Range. Now it's your turn, Kevin.
Thanks, Gary. I appreciate it. Really not a whole lot to report here. We're still working through the new budget restraints we received from CDOT, but appreciate all the help from our leadership there at Region 4. They're doing an outstanding job helping us out there. And we have a meeting coming up here in September. That's all I got. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Ute Mountain.
Good morning, everyone. Not much to update. We are working closely with CDOT. We had a meeting with them, with our regional crew, CDOT crew last week, and we try to maintain that every 2-3 months. And so the tribe's pretty content with where we're at with the highways at this moment. We're just working on the minor maintenance at this time. So, and that's where we're at with it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Eastern, we haven't had official meetings, but we've had a few subcommittees for our multimodal option fund. We have opened up call for projects for some of the out year funding to see if anybody wants some of that, or if a few of the projects that are in progress could use some of that funding to complete their projects with some of the budget increases they've seen on pricing. So since they were awarded. We've been working through our long range plan and pretty well have it finalized with what's been presented to us. Waiting for the public comments here as we move into our September meeting. Plan to be adopting it at our September meeting with any minor changes that will probably be made. Other than that, wrapped up wheat harvest out in our area, which this year probably generated around 70,000 loads of wheat in Colorado for wheat harvest. So it's a lot of trucks that were on county and city streets and state highways, and those will be moving multiple times as they move into the food chain. So that highlights the need for our, as one of our top priorities for our region is always the freight movement and making sure our state highways are in good shape to handle that weight that's moving around on our highways. As they start to show their age, they deteriorate much faster with the heavy loads that are running on them. So that's why we're always pushing for that maintenance and keeping our state highways in good shape to keep us all connected. So thank you. Anything else anybody missed on our TPR reports? Okay, seeing none. Legislative report, Jamie, for our federal update.
I'm coming.
There you are. You're the presenter, so.
I know everybody seems to be having trouble with their cameras today, and I was being all, full of myself, thinking I'm not having trouble with my camera. Well, good morning, everybody. So politically, I think the world is very busy right now if people are watching the news, but congressionally, very quiet right now because we are in August recess, which means that our legislators are back in, theoretically, in Colorado and are meeting with constituents and hosting meetings and things like that. Before they left, they did have two pretty significant, significant legislative actions. They both chambers, their appropriations committee passed the annual appropriation for transportation, which means they passed the FY26 budget to get ready for when FY26 starts on October 1st. It only has passed out of committee. It has not passed the full chamber yet on either side. And they are not the same bills. So what will need to happen is they'll still need to do a conference. They'll need to put it through the full chamber and then most likely need to do a conference committee. Right now, our industry organizations are not particularly confident that they're going to be able to do a full appropriations bill, and we will have a continuing resolution. However, we still are 2 months out, and I don't know. I feel like trying to predict this Congress is, you have better luck with the Super Bowl these days. So we're keeping an eye on that. The Senate appropriations bill has a slight increase in discretionary spending for the DOT, while the House has a slight decrease. So there are some changes, and there are some gaps they're going to have to bridge. They are both putting a significant amount of money towards FAA and air traffic control changes and increases. So we all are aware that that's been an issue this year. Well, it's been an issue for a long time, but that's definitely been a priority of this administration to get more money in the sky. So that's what I have. That's what I've got for you guys legislatively. In terms of silliness, on Saturday, so there's no good holidays today. They're all super lame. But on Saturday, it is Garage Sale Day, National Book Lovers Day, National Bowling Day, and National Handholding Day. So if you can figure out how to do all 4 of those at some point during the day, you get the gold medal for silly holidays. Or if you can just do one, definitely encourage everybody to go bowling or read something. And then Sunday is National Spoil Your Dog Day, which I think is ridiculous because that's every day at my house. So let me know if you have any questions.
Any questions? All righty. Any questions for Herman or anything on the state level? Anybody have any questions or comments on? Okay, not seeing any. So we're flying through the agenda today. So we'll go ahead and take a 10-minute break real quick here, and then we'll come back on and go into the transit connection study. Darius? Did you have a?
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know, Mr. Chair, we're having a couple of issues with the YouTube stream. So I think if anybody wants to join the Zoom from staff or the STAC members, they can, and we'll put the recording of this meeting up on the website afterwards. So just wanted to let you know about that small technical issue that we're having.
Okay. Thank you. If anybody knows of anybody that was trying to watch it, they can come to the Zoom meeting. All righty, guess we'll get started back with the Transit Connection Study overview. Paul.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Beatty. Appreciate the invitation to STAC this month. By way of introduction, my name is Paul DeRocher. I'm the Director of the Division of Transit and Rail. And just wanted to kind of establish a little bit of background on DTR before we jump into the study. So if you can go to the next slide. So DTR was established via state legislation in 2009. And we are charged with planning, developing, operating, and integrating transit and rail into the statewide transit system. Go to the next slide. And DTR is housed under the Office of Innovative Mobility. That's led by Kay Kelly. She's my boss. And within DTR, we have 3 branches: passenger rail, grant programs, transit planning and operations. So within passenger rail, that includes projects like Front Range Passenger Rail and Mountain Rail. Within our grant programs, we have both our pre and post-award teams. So pre-award teams really focused on developing notice of funding availability, and then post-award is really working with the subrecipients after they are awarded funds. So we do that with both state and federal funds, and then soon we'll be doing that with enterprise funds coming out. Actually, there's a NOFA released right now with the Clean Transit Enterprise for formula funds to support operations. If you're interested in more information on that, feel free to get in touch with me afterwards. And then our transit planning and operations group is comprised of bus operations. That's busting that will be orienting much of the discussion around today. Transit planning, as well as transit project delivery, including the delivery of mobility hubs. You can go to the next slide. So busting, for those who don't know, was launched in 2015. And a lot of busting's history has to do with Greyhound's exit from the Colorado market. So Colorado really has been a leader in the nation in the establishment and the expansion of intercity transit such as busting. And so busting started at a fairly modest service operating up and down I-25, about 1 round trip a day. Then in 2018, our rural-focused Outrider network launched. We are up to 8 routes throughout the state now. And then in 2019, we established some seasonal services, specifically snowsting and busting to Estes. Those launched. And then in 2022, coming out of the pandemic, we were provided funding through SB 22-180 to both establish Pegasus, which is using these small vehicles that you see in the lower right-hand corner that don't require a commercial driver's license to operate. And for a long time, transit agencies were having trouble getting operators with CDLs. And they're also able to operate within the peak period shoulder lanes on I-70. And so that service was launched in 22. And then it also allowed us to expand what we refer to as our mainline services on I-70 and I-25, essentially tripling service out of there. So of course, which I think most folks recall, ridership on transit throughout the world was really quite diminished due to social distancing guidelines, and expanding services one of the tried and true ways that you can help to regain ridership. And so that has been borne out, that I'll kind of walk through here in a couple of slides as well. Next slide. This is our network here today. And what you see really is kind of the hard work of a lot of folks that have come before me. I think the main takeaway here, and for folks to understand, is that Bustang and our Outrider network is one of, if not the preeminent intercity transit networks throughout the country. We are frequently called upon from other states to kind of talk through how we were able to grow this network and to establish not only those mainline services on I-25 and I-70, but also connect our rural communities to urban centers so that rural residents can access goods and services that they otherwise would not have access to. And so really, this is a network that I'm personally quite proud of representing. And then I think if we go to the next slide, what you'll see, and I'm not sure how many people play the stock market, but this is something that I think for us really is the return on investment that we are looking for. So as you can see here in 2021, we saw a pretty significant valley in terms of ridership, carrying about 70,000 passengers a year. That was less than our first year in 2016, where we carried 100,000 passengers. But once we were able to receive those funds through SB 22-180, we were able to build back ridership through additional service. And it's, again, a tried and true method where if you're adding more service, it is typically going to get a positive response from the community because it's going to be more convenient. And that's really borne out here. I think our return on investment for the investment in that service is borne out here in our ridership. So in FY25, we had our highest ridership year ever, carrying just over 350,000 passengers across our network. And really, again, kind of showcasing the benefit and I think the positive response that we see when we add service, grow our network, that the public really demonstrates when you're providing a service that's of high value to them. So I think if we move into the next slide, what we're really trying to do in the Transit Connection Study, which comprises the basis of my remarks today, is to build from the successes that the state of Colorado has established with the Bustang family of services. We recognize that in growing this network, we're going to have a very positive response, and we want to continue that positive trajectory with an even more substantial transit network. So the Transit Connection Study, if we head into the next slide, really sought to do a few things, but most importantly was to create a strategic vision led by a data-based analysis for how we could grow our network even further and connect areas of significant need throughout the state. So we looked at stops, stations, different regional and interregional gaps in order to create this integrated transit network. So you can kind of see here along the bottom of this slide how we were approaching the study, a fairly traditional approach to the study. What is our current state of transit? What were the gaps in that existing network? And then developing recommendations in our report. And we are currently in a draft report stage. And so I'm happy to bring some of the recommendations that we came through this analysis if we head into the next slide. I think before we get into some of the X's and O's of TCS, it's important to establish what it is and what it is not. I think what TCS is, and I mentioned this kind of at the top of my remarks, is that it provides a vision for what a statewide public transportation network is, and that it is helping to identify gaps in our public transportation network. I think an important aspect of this is that we've defined some really key metrics in terms of community access, equity, and financial sustainability in order to prioritize those improvements. I think it's equally important to understand what TCS is not. So first off, TCS is not a specific project proposal. We are not recommending specific projects into, say, the 10-year plan. We are not funding. We do not have funding for some of these specific projects. And it also does not assign a specific implementer of these these projects. And so while the state led the TCS, we do not propose or purport that the state would necessarily implement a lot of the recommendations herein. I think as we talk about some of the project types later on, you'll kind of understand why. Some of the recommendations are focused on regional connections, where the state really is focused on intercity networks. And so there can be opportunities potentially where the state partners with local or regional governments to establish these project types, but it does not purport to necessarily be the state as the implementing agency. And then again, I think talking about the success of our intercity transit network and our local transit network throughout the state of Colorado, what we have observed kind of looking at the current state of transit is that, the state of Colorado is really well served. Of course, within that, there are always opportunities to improve. 86% of the population is within 10 miles of bus staying or an Amtrak station. We also have some extremely high performers, particularly in the rural transit area, RAFTA being the highest performer among them. And 9 out of the top 20 rural transit providers in the country are within the state of Colorado. And so again, the state is really leading in this concept of both intercity and rural transit. But here again, in this last bullet, RTD is still accounting for about 70% of all unlinked transit trips in the state. So that means to say that of all transit trips, RTD is still carrying the lion's share of our ridership. However, we are still focused and observe that rural transit is carrying a substantial part of their own travel demand within those markets. So we're doing well. And I think what we were really trying to demonstrate within this table is, as you see in Denver and other urban areas, we have great transit access to a variety of different trip types. So recreational, educational, institutional, medical, essential, and lifeline. I'm happy to explain what each of those means specifically. However, I think what we're really trying to demonstrate here is that, within Denver and then other urban areas, there is a significant access to these different trip types. However, when you're looking at the statewide level and also in the rural level specifically, access drops off quite precipitously. And so what we recognize here is there are opportunities to better connect specifically rural and kind of our statewide residents to some of these different trip types here. So if we head into the next slide, we can see what our transit coverage looks like. And so this is an interesting map here that I think I'll just kind of break down a little bit. So you see on the right, the legend, the annual transit stops per locus trip. So locus is a data set that essentially is taking location-based services, so cell phone data, to identify where all trips are being taken through the state. And so that becomes our denominator. And then the numerator of this data set is transit stops. And so what we're really trying to demonstrate here is that travel demand is significant through the state of all different trip types, and overwhelmingly it's going to be traveling by automobile. But if you compare that to transit stops within that overall data set of travel demand, transit is only able to access kind of the areas that you see here in yellow, and some of the darker splotches indicate a higher degree of transit access of those overall trips. And so there's a kind of a drop off, if you will, of the amount of transit access that you can have to areas where overall people are trying to go. And then another part of some of our existing state of transit and transportation throughout the state highlighted zero car households. I think what's really important about this slide is that zero car households, while sometimes associated with urban areas, really are shown throughout the state, and particularly in rural areas. So this is the percentage of households that have zero cars. And so you'll see kind of the darker splotches indicate where there is a higher percentage of zero car households in these counties. And so I think here again, this is just demonstrating that the lack of automobile access is not an urban issue per se. Certainly it doesn't mean to say that it is not an urban issue, but I think it also suggests that there is a need for transit in rural areas similarly as there is in urban areas due to the lack of access to automobiles. And then I think what's important for this slide, and it's fairly well understood that a lot of employment density exists within the Front Range. And I think as we think about that, and particularly in the context of employment equity, it is how do people access those jobs if we are going to agglomerate jobs, and that is where work is being agglomerated along the Front Range. How are folks outside of the Front Range able to access those employment opportunities? So this becomes kind of an incumbent issue on CDOT to be able to provide a transportation network that allows residents to be able to access those jobs. And then lastly, in terms of our existing network of data, and again, this is just a sample of some of the things that we looked at. It is not comprehensive of everything, but looking at Colorado's senior population, I think it's fairly well documented that Colorado, as well as the country, is aging quite rapidly. And here's where we see a higher percentage of the population being in that senior demographic. And as you can see here, it is significantly higher senior population along that sort of southern part of the state. So again, this is the percentage of seniors amongst the total population. And so again, as people age and they age out of driving, it again provides an opportunity for the state and our partners to be able to provide transportation options that work with that demographic. Next slide. And here is a snapshot of our TCS, or our Transit Connection Study Analysis process. So I talked a little bit about the inputs. What was that kind of base data that we looked at kind of heading into this study? And we'll transition here and kind of to the three different kind of areas that we went through in this planning process. So the next phase is really on our gaps analysis. So we collected these data sets that I walked through a few samples of. And then the gaps analysis really focused on these four key areas: travel demand, so where do people want to go, community access, and how accessible was the transit network, the transit network connectivity, so how well does the existing transit network connect to other networks. And then lastly, who was it that we were serving? Again, going back to some of those previous slides that I mentioned about who actually is more likely to use transit based on the needs that they demonstrate. If you head into the next slide. So again, within this gaps analysis, here are some key questions that we attempted to answer. So obviously, where are people trying to go? We want to be able to align the resources with the need. What transit options are available, kind of in that same vein. And then lastly, what are the services and amenities that people are trying to access, and kind of understanding where those trips were. Kind of talk through these 4 areas already in terms of the overarching framework, the travel demand, community access, the transit network connectivity, and unmet and equitable need. And this just describes a little bit further about who and what we were referring to in looking at these 4 key areas. So again, just some samples in terms of that gaps analysis. Looking through this community access piece. So again, thinking about how accessible the transit network is. This is a snapshot of Granby, Colorado. So for our kind of Intermountain and Northwestern stakeholders on the meeting today, you all are likely very familiar with this. There's not an existing transit connection between Granby and Grand Lake. And we see this as a potential opportunity to establish a potential transit connection there and really a gap that it currently exists now. So this is both for residents of Grand Lake that are potentially trying to access the intercity passenger rail network that exists in Granby, as well as the regional transit network that is established through the Winter Park Lift service. So these are opportunities to better connect the community. And then vice versa for folks wanting to transfer from, say, the California Zephyr that stops in Granby, and in the future, our mountain rail services to get to Grand Lake, and then other recreational opportunities in the Rocky Mountain National Park. Then in terms of connectivity, this is just a sample looking at Parachute. And what we see here in orange is that the PATS network, which is a great local network that the city of Parachute was able to establish, it does not quite connect to our existing busing route. So what we're really kind of identifying here is an opportunity to better connect 2 transit services together. And really kind of calling out the gaps that exist, and especially looking through the eyes of a user where you might be getting off the PATS route, wanting to connect to busing, but there may not be a clear way to get from the existing stop on that local network to that intercity network, or a safe way to do so. And so just, again, kind of calling out these gaps that exist in the state network and the local network. So again, moving through our planning framework, we transitioned from the gaps analysis into different project types. And I think within these 3 different areas, is it a new or extended corridor? Is it an optimized service? So again, looking at more about timing and connections between those 2 services, and then potentially what do the stops and stations look like within those different project types. I think the next slide talks through what are kind of more specifically within that newer extended service, or the different project types that we're recommending here. So that could be an interregional fixed route service. It could be regional, or it could be demand response, just depending on the context. And then within service optimization, this could be increased frequency. It could be better timing transfers. It could be a schedule change. And then within stops and stations, that could be increasing the opportunity for unlinked transfers, or establishing a new market or activity center that may not currently be served by transit. Next slide. And I think one question that we do get a fair bit is why project types? And I think really kind of without reading the words on the page here, it's important to understand that, you know, the state cannot necessarily implement all of the recommendations that we are proposing here. And in particular on some of the local and regional improvements, these are opportunities that we see as being implemented at the local or regional level, so that we can, again, kind of keep our focus at an intercity connection and really connecting throughout the state. And so, again, within this project type, the recommendations here are really planning level. And so they can be taken to the next level for an operations analysis. We aren't recommending a specific agency for implementation. And again, all of these solutions are intended to be flexible and help to increase kind of a network focus on how we can improve the transit network through the state. And then lastly, we've developed some of these project types. We want to be able to talk through how we prioritize those project types. And here's how we do that. You'll notice that in the project prioritization, it refers back pretty closely to the gaps analysis. So where we identified gaps, those also relate to the prioritization with the addition of financial sustainability. And so I think if we go to the next slide, this just sort of breaks down each of those different prioritization themes and really the questions that we answered or asked that we wanted to answer as we prioritize some of these different project types. So within the transit network connections, this was things like, does the project connect to an existing public transit service or stop? In terms of community access, are we connecting an unserved activity center? So again, going back to that example in Granby and Grand Lake. And then within equity, does this project provide better access to disproportionately impacted communities or transit-dependent populations? And then lastly, would the project be eligible under existing funding sources? This is, of course, always important. If you're intending to initiate a service, you want to be able to have a sustainable funding source associated with that. So in terms of the summary of project types, here's what you see here. We probably could have done a better job of selecting a color for the location-based project types that you see here. The yellow, I recognize, doesn't quite pop out on the screen. We'll make that change. But one of the things that I think is important that is kind of a takeaway here is that we really wanted to distribute some of the recommendations throughout the state, recognizing that if there are going to be investments through transit connections, that we do so in an equitable manner. And so that's kind of what you see represented here throughout some of these different project type summaries, is really connecting these activity centers and then distributing those recommendations in different parts of the state. So some of the, yeah, I see there's a question.
Well, mine was more when you got to the end of the presentation, and I was going to ask, so I saw that there you had a connectivity station maybe in Park County. I know a lot of people finish their week on the Front Range, get in their cars and go up to up 285 to Park County, and they're just getting overwhelmed. It's like their population increases by 50,000 on the weekends. So, you know, in a county in the mountains like Park, I can see the benefit of going up to the ski resorts on a bus staying. There's a lot of benefit, I know, going back and forth to work. But what about, how would you, if you got someone to Park County, you know, get them out to a recreational activity? Would Park have to have its own little shuttle bus service, or?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that goes back to kind of back to some of the kind of discussion around project types, Holly, around, so we identified both intercity, regional, and demand response services. And so within those demand response services, that could be a locally led shuttle that gets folks to trailheads, different things like that. There are a few examples of transit services that exist locally that operate just in that same way. I think one of the things that's really exciting right now is that there is a new funding source that's available through the Clean Transit Enterprise for local governments, regional transit agencies, and other organizations to take advantage of if they were wanting to establish those kinds of connections. And so what we're really proposing in terms of how local and regional governments use this study is that we're providing a menu of options that have kind of gone through a planning rigor and analysis to propose a project to establish those connections, and that local government can take this study, take a recommendation or a project type from the study, and then move it towards implementation, leveraging some of that new funding through the Clean Transit Enterprise. And so that, from a process standpoint, is potentially how you could establish a service that might better connect, say, if somebody was taking the existing Denver to Crested Butte Outrider route and then passing through Park County. Park County could potentially establish a service that would connect somebody from that Outrider route to a different destination or activity center in Park County that's been established through this study. Does that help?
No, yes, it does. It's just some ideas. I think Grand Valley, am I right, Vince, has a bus service, an RTA. One of them does have an RTA that's just primarily a bus service. And I think that that's something very useful, just to an extra source of funding, because if you could get up to Park County and take the cars off the road, then maybe you start the we'll rent you your camping gear and all that stuff, and we'll drop you off at wherever you're going. And it might be a way to cut down, because they're getting a lot of high speed and accidents and things like that, because people are just racing up and racing back. And everybody wants to go to the beauty of the mountains on the weekends. So, all right, it was just, an interesting thought.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and definitely support the idea in terms of establishing a regional transit agency or authority. There's a lot of counties. Eagle County recently established their own through Core Transit. I know Steamboat is looking at that, and the Yampa Valley is looking at that currently. And yeah, there's really kind of a lot of evidence to suggest that really, in terms of mode shift and getting people out of their cars and onto transit, is going to be best supported through a local network. And developing that local network, of course, is going to take some local funding. So establishing an RTA that has a dedicated funding stream is extremely important to that end.
Yes, we do have our mountain metro down here in Colorado Springs. It's just that the demand is not that high yet. And so, because a lot of people are getting in their cars to go to work, I'm more thinking of what happens if a person gets in their car to go up into Park County, whether, Highway 24 or 285, when they get there, how do you recreate on the weekend? Because I know the Mustangs are hugely popular for getting back and forth to work, and that's been a really, really good success. All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I just have a few more slides here. Just in terms of our prioritization and the project types here, I'll just run through a few of them. I think one of the things that really jumped out to us in terms of travel demand is a lack of transit connection to Castle Rock in that region currently. And so we see this as a great opportunity, both in terms of weekday and weekend trip demand, there's a really high demand there. And so again, kind of understanding that this was a data-based analysis in terms of all travel demand and where transit is currently not meeting that travel demand, we've identified those as potential opportunities. And so Castle Rock jumped out to us. If we jump to the next slide, again, kind of on these 4 themes, one of which is the community connectivity section. Looking at Canyon City, again, as a sample of some of the project types, is better establishing a connection to Colorado Springs and understanding kind of some of the travel demand that exists there. There is a transit service that passes through this area, but does not specifically serve Canyon City. And so wanting to really establish that opportunity to connect folks in rural parts of Colorado to urban parts of Colorado, whether it be for employment, for services, or other needs. And then vice versa, to bring folks from urban parts of the state, such as Colorado Springs, to rural ones, whether that be for recreation or other types of opportunities that folks might be seeking to use transit on. And then in terms of equity and the who are we serving, it's fairly well documented that Weld County is the fastest growing part of Colorado. And really in the Greeley area is where we see a significant amount of growth throughout the state. And so that US 85 corridor is really one that jumped out to us as an opportunity for really being able to provide equitable access, not only to jobs, really in both directions between Denver and Greeley, but there's a significant amount of travel demand that exists along this corridor, and really being able to establish a clear kind of connection both north and south that is an alternative to I-25, where we already have existing mainline transit service. And then I think lastly, this is again kind of focused on that regional service between Montrose and Ouray and via Ridgeway. There is a weekday service that exists there, but there is not any weekend service within this area. And so this could be an opportunity for a local service or a regional service such as All Points Transit in Montrose to be able to establish that service. Again, being able to leverage funding, new funding through the transit enterprise, and really be able to connect both ways. Again, if it's folks coming from Montrose or Ridgeway into Ouray from an intercity network such as Bustang that travels along these networks, but doesn't quite get to a travel destination that we identified through this study. And so it's really kind of expanding on the existing connections that exist there. So again, kind of walking through a lot of this study, this is a bit of a snapshot in all of the areas, but I think what's important as a takeaway is that we wanted to provide an opportunity for our stakeholders to be able to leverage a data-driven transit analysis to be and select projects that might make sense for their region. There could potentially be opportunities where the state and local and regions are partnered to establish those services. And so I would just encourage folks who want to take some of the recommendations that were established here in our project types and our prioritization to get in touch with us. And I think that's kind of the next slide here. We are doing a fair bit of outreach right now, just in terms of this presentation today. We have our own Transit and Rail Advisory Committee in DTR, where we presented. Transit Monthly is a monthly call that we do with our transit providers throughout the state. CASTA is coming up, the Colorado Association of State Transit Agencies, in September, where we will present and then kind of hosting other webinars and agency meetings. I think one of the things that I did want to leave folks with is HTML for our project webpage that you can kind of see at the bottom here. I think without trying to memorize this URL, it might be easier to just type in CDOT Transit Connection Study, and it will come up probably as the top hit. So that's the best way that you can go and leave feedback for the study. And then I'm also happy to take any questions now. And I also want to just recognize too, I've got George Gromke, who's our transit planner, on the line as well. George was the project manager in addition to John Marco Antonio in the Office of Innovative Mobility, and just want to recognize all of the work that they've done on this study. And he may be able to help me out with some of the really hard questions too.
Okay. Vern.
Yeah, thanks, Paul, for this study. I was curious if in your research, did you come across any routes or services that really didn't, I guess with the ridership, didn't justify the service? I mean, there was a lot of like, there's potential for added routes. I was wondering if you came across anything like that.
Yeah, great question. I think the one thing I didn't really talk about is, so this study obviously is a statewide look. It's kind of agency agnostic, if you will. But concurrently, while we were doing the TCS, and really this is kind of a year-long process, but we have been identifying and doing analysis on the existing busting network. And so right now, as I'm sure, actually Herman alluded to this pretty directly at the top of the meeting, there's a pretty tight budget season that we're entering into. And so we've been asked to take a really hard look at the existing busting network, looking at kind of industry metrics like what is the cost per rider and different ridership metrics to evaluate really that question of, overall, our system is very successful, but there are opportunities for us to optimize that service. And so there are some proposals that we're weighing kind of in the context of that budget, that tight budget that we are kind of experiencing right now, that will likely move forward in the next few months, but not really ready for prime time right now in terms of identifying those specific routes, but we are evaluating them.
Liz.
There we go. Sorry. I have a couple of questions here. It kind of looked like in one of the maps that you had Highway 34 from the Greeley area up to Estes Park as a regionally significant area. Was that actually it wasn't highlighted in one of the, it's highlighted there, kind of looks like, but it didn't look like it was highlighted in one of the other maps. Is that one that was included in the study? And then if so, I know you kind of had said where we could leave questions for feedback. Is there places we can get all of this information to include in our own grant requests, like use this information for grants on our own?
Yeah. And I think in terms of Highway 34 specifically, George, do you know if that was identified in terms of a specific project?
Yeah, I can take this one. Yeah, that one is on the list here as you're seeing it. And then I would say one of our next step items too is to kind of transition this over to a story map. And so where we'll have references to the report and the study and the findings, as well as we're going to include links to, of course, to all the data that we have as well to download and to use that can help to inform some of those decisions or to help with evaluation across the state. And so that is a next step piece as well. So expanding on the website we have to just provide more information, data that can be consumed and used to build off of this study.
Yeah, so I think the story map that George referenced, Liz, would be available. And then that is on the project URL. And then also, we can also make available the draft study so that folks can be able to leverage those for grant applications, whether that's pursuing funding through Clean Transit Enterprise or other opportunities that may exist. And I think, as I see Kay in the chat here, it's important for us to really highlight that the presentation today is really, obviously limited by time here, but it's just a sample of some of the things that we looked at. And so I think, for kind of a specific look at some of the corridors that we looked at, we can provide that draft study that folks can pull from and be able to examine their specific corridors that are of interest to their region.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments for Paul or the study? Okay. Not seeing any, so thank you, Paul, and the presentation, very good.
Thank you.
Okay, up next is our 2050 plan update with Darius.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to turn it over to Marissa Gahan, my Assistant Director for Multimodal Planning, who's going to go over the 2050 statewide plan, which is open for public comment, and give you a review of that and some reviews of some of the information that we gathered from some of our public engagement activities that occurred over the first half of the year. And Aaron Willis, our statewide and regional planning manager, will go over those. So I'm going to turn it over to Marissa.
Thank you, Darius, and good morning, everyone. You want to go to the next slide? So yeah, so today I think Darius covered it well, what we're going to be talking about, but just sort of where we are in the overall timeline of the 2050 statewide and regional transportation plan development. I'm going to walk you through the major content areas of the statewide plan, and then our schedule and process to adopt the plans. And then Aaron, we'll turn it to Aaron at the end of this presentation, and he'll be sharing with you some of our findings from our public outreach efforts related to the statewide plan and the regional plans, which include the telephone town halls, and then most recently our statewide survey. So really exciting. I just want to pause here and just thank everyone. Thanks STAC. Thank you all as representatives of your respective MPOs and TPRs for sticking with us on this long journey. We've been at it for over a year now. And, we've had a series of at least 4 meetings with each of the rural TPRs. So that's 40 plus meetings total where CDOT and my team and others have had the wonderful opportunity to travel the state and meet with you all at your meetings. And that's in addition to the monthly meetings that each of our MPOs host that we attend as well in order to stay in close coordination with the MPO planning. So just want to reflect on some appreciation and gratitude. We've been working really hard and it's been a very collaborative process throughout. So and now we're here hitting the home stretch where we're able to take all of that work and bring to you today a draft of the statewide plan. So if you want to go to the next slide. So just a reminder about why we do this. The long range plan is a federally required document. So we work to update this long range plan about every 4 to 5 years. And we write these long range plans first and foremost to meet the requirements of a performance-based long-range transportation plan. So to do that, we work closely with each and every one of you, hear about what your needs are around the state. I also want to recognize that we have, in addition to the federal requirements, certain state requirements. And so like the 10-year plan is a state requirement, which we're anticipating adopting towards the end of this year. So we do the best we can to integrate the themes from the state required planning elements and summarize them at a high level in the 2050 plan, and then go even further on those required elements as part of the 10-year plan or listed as like a related planning document on the CDOT website. If you want to go to the next slide. So we have, I think there's 7 key content areas of the long range plan. So at the end of this presentation, there's a link on where you can view it, as well as the regional plans, but just to kind of, get you oriented with what's in the plan. There's 7 key areas, sort of a welcome to the plan. Then we talk about engagement and regional collaborations, our goals and performance measures, our transportation story in Colorado, our investment strategy, and then how we want to implement your transportation plan. I'll go through these, each one of these in the next slide, if you want to go to the next slide. So first is the welcome to your transportation plan. It features an introduction similar to how we kicked off our telephone town halls. I know many of you as staff members tuned into those. So a lot of the same messaging kind of appears, is reiterated in the welcome paragraph for your transportation plan. This section really highlights all the accomplishments from the last 5 years. So we highlight key highway and transit projects that have been delivered around the state. We describe Colorado's evolving transportation needs, and this will also talk about and introduce our citizen-informed, performance-based approach to transportation planning. Our next slide. So the next part is really important. It talks about our engagement and regional collaboration. So here's where we talk about the regional plans, so each and every one of your plans, our tribal coordination, and then how we roll up those themes to inform our statewide plan. It describes how this plan builds on the expansive outreach from our last planning effort, and then talks about like our telephone town halls and public survey and how we went about gathering input by area of the state. Let's go to the next slide. So the next area talks about our goals and performance measures. So if you recall back to that timeline, we began this process of updating our long range plan by taking a critical look on our policy directive 14, which is our performance policy that guides the statewide plan. And that's, we had lots of really great discussion at STAC and our commission to first figure out, what we wanted to achieve as a state, and the key areas, performance areas that came out of that were fixing our roads, advancing transportation safety, and sustainably increasing transportation choice. So this plan, the 2050 plan, summarizes those priority areas and our goals and targets associated with them. Then it also addresses the national performance measures. It integrates data from CDOT's performance plan and our transportation asset management plan, and then information about stakeholder consultation. So Colorado's transportation story is next. I think this is a cool part of the plan where we kind of pivot to talk about all these goals and targets, performance measures, but this section really talks about what does it mean to each and every one of our communities in the state, because we know there's different needs for each area of the state. So it talks about how that really applies in different contexts statewide. So it describes the relationship between the built environment and transportation. We were really excited this planning cycle to partner really closely with our safety team in the development of of the state's highway and safety improvement plan. So in this section, we also were able to share a lot of the safety data trends and themes from the safety plan. And then also, you just heard from Paul and DTR, we worked really closely to integrate transit data, goals from Bustang, mobility hubs, and provide a linkage to be consistent with the transit connection study. So the next section talks about our transportation investment strategy. I think back in June, I kind of gave you a presentation about the 10-year plan and how that strategy fits within CDOT's overall budget. So essentially that's what this section is. If you remember that presentation, it describes CDOT's budget, the 10-year plan, and the 5 enterprises. It really describes our funding for asset management and how we're directing a lot of resources at the state to fixing our roads. It talks about how CDOT is leveraging funding to try to make the most out of every dollar. And again, how that 10-year plan is really designed to work in parallel with our budget to stretch our funding sources and our limited funding further to meet our performance goals. So implementation of your transportation plan. We talk a lot here about our commitment to accountability and transparency. I think one of the really exciting things that we've delivered in the last 5 years that didn't exist, some of these did not exist, I guess, when we adopted the 2045, was we have a lot of data dashboards, including our 10-year plan performance reporting. We also have a Colorado crash data dashboard, a bridge condition dashboard, pavement condition, a PD14 dashboard. So we've been really working, I would say, hard in the last 5 years to be more transparent and should have a more public-friendly way of showing how we're delivering and meeting certain goals related to planning statewide and how we're delivering projects to meet those goals. So this section really focuses on that and includes links to all these tools. And then the last section called the future, because we are talking 2050, long way from here. But we talk sort of about the initiatives that we're seeing today that will probably shape the future of transportation in Colorado. So this includes vehicle technology, electrification, connectivity and automation, freight and supply chain innovations, things like that. Okay. So please, and we'll be sending out emails in addition to this presentation to you all, but please visit yourtransportationplan.com. That's where you can visit or should go to visit and review the draft of the 2050 statewide plan that I just went over. That link also contains the rural regional transportation plans that we've been working closely with you to develop. So there's a box, if you go to that website, that says review the 2050 plan, and then right underneath it, there's a box that will take you to all the 10 rural regional plans if you would like to review those. The link also contains the statewide transit plan. All of that is there for public review. There's a form that you can fill out to make the review easy, to give us your input, or share it with your members and your communities to get their input. So today we're coming to you to overview the plan. We'll be giving the same presentation to Transportation Commission during their workshop in a couple weeks. We'll end the public review and comment at the end of the month on August 31st. And then return to you again in September to share the results of the public review, and then I'm anticipating asking for your recommendation to the Commission for adoption in September. Let's see, with that, I'll turn it to Erin. I think you're up next, to talk about the results from our telephone town halls and public survey.
Thanks, Marissa. As you're well aware, STAC members, we had hosted both telephone town halls for all of our transportation commission districts, and we did a pretty robust public survey. So happy to share some of the high-level results and findings from both those public involvement efforts, which we then folded into the statewide plan. So as a recap for most folks, maybe new for some of our new STAC members or new commissioners. From late April to early June, we hosted a set of telephone town halls for all of our transportation commission districts. These are much like a live radio call-in show. We had a consultant host. We dial out a bunch of numbers for each one of these areas. People pick up and they're connected live, and they're able to speak directly with the transportation commissioner for their area and be able to ask questions, not only of the commissioner, but from the RTD, that regional transportation directors that cover these areas, with support from a number of staff. So from April to June, we reached and spoke with over 50,000 Coloradoans. So over 50,000 folks participated. Some participated for a very long time. Some participated for a very short time. But commissioners and CDOT staff were able to respond to over 120 questions throughout all of these telephone town halls. And you'll see on the right, at the peak for each one of these town halls, you had some really great participation, and also another piece. We had also a lot of folks who stayed on the call for quite a bit of time, which is one of those measures that I personally gauge as a successful round of telephone town halls. And so then when we looked at the questions, we looked at some of the polling responses, we then summarized some key emerging themes that you found that were pretty consistent generally. Of course, there's, obviously some regional variation in terms of issues that came up, and regional variation in terms of callers really getting a hyper focused, a hyper specific on something that is, of concern to them. But broadly speaking, when we back up a little bit, we found that, overwhelmingly there was, discussions and desires to address roadway conditions, particularly pavement, particularly potholes and deteriorating highway surfaces along some of our key corridors throughout the state. The theme of transportation safety, particularly aggressive, reckless driving, distracted driving, all of those things also came up, and it also includes pedestrian and cyclist safety across urban and rural areas. And then transit was also a very well discussed item. A lot of questions about passenger rail, front range passenger rail, regional services, affordability, reliability of transit, and then of course multimodal, and then other communications and accessibility issues also were found when you sum up all of the telephone town hall findings. So I'm going to start off with some of the key emerging findings from the survey. And just as a bit of background, we had well over 3,000 survey respondents when we put the survey out. We heard from just about every Colorado county, about 61 out of 64 Colorado counties. And our survey, while not statistically, we didn't do the rigor that's required for it to be statistically valid, it is a really good representation of sentiment for our state. And so when we also focused the survey around those policy Directive 14 areas. And so when we then backed up and talked and went through some of the analysis and summary, these are some of the overarching themes at a statewide level that came up. And you'll see a lot of consistency between our telephone town halls and the survey in the area of maintenance and roadway condition. That was an emerging theme, regardless of how you cross-tabulated the survey findings based on location, based on any other type of demographic measure. That was a pretty emerging, high-ranking topic of fixing the roads and maintenance and roadway condition. Also heard a lot about freight and rail, particularly the realm of passenger, front range passenger rail. Also a significant number of tourism related access, access to recreational lands. We also heard about wildlife, and that was in a lot of different areas of the state, particularly Western Slope and down south. And then broadly speaking, other bus, regional transit, and other multimodal options was also an emerging topic, in addition to resilience and land use. So when we did the analysis on our first set of questions, we asked first for folks to prioritize the fixing our roads question. So in rank order, prioritize these following elements of fixing our roads. And so what you found here was at the top, the most important finding was improving pavement condition. When people responded to this question, that was followed by improving bridge condition, and then in a tie, you had preserving other state roadway assets, culverts, retaining walls, and then improving resilience. When we asked folks to rank advancing transportation, that was interesting that the number one response there was supporting safe and secure transportation systems for users regardless of mode. So if you're driving, your trip should be safe. If you're walking, if you're biking, your trip should also be safe. That was followed by maintaining a system that can is resilient to weather events, followed by reducing the loss of life and injuries on our system, and then reducing disparities in safety across Colorado's diverse communities. And then lastly, among the ranking questions was the ranking order of sustainably increasing transportation choice. Interesting here, the finding, the highest ranking one was expanding availability of safe and convenient sidewalks, biking paths, and crosswalks. We found that interesting to outrank the expansion of statewide transit. While statewide transit showed up as important in other parts for this particular ranking question, it ranked very high. That was followed by electric vehicles, which were also basically tie number 3 and number 4, and then reducing greenhouse gas. So after we asked those sets of questions, we asked among the 3 PD14 goals, rank those in priority order. So folks overwhelmingly said that their number one priority among the 3 PD14 goals was fixing our roads. That was followed by advancing transportation safety, and then that was in third place was sustainably increasing transportation choice. So we also had a number of open-ended questions. So specifically, after we asked folks to rank fixing our roads first by the previous categories, we asked them, what does that mean to you? So when we think about this concept of fixing our roads, what does that mean to you? So for each one of those answers, those open-ended answers, so we asked, what does that mean to you for each one of the 3 PD14 goal areas? We had over 1,800 different open-ended questions that we went through and summarized. So we did our best here to try and capture the essence of all of those different questions, which were obviously very, very wide ranging in responses. But for the most part, people really emphasize, fixing our roads means safe, accessible roads. It means less damage. It just means addressing basically potholes. And that there should be a focus on repair and maintenance. And then that generally our roads are in a very deteriorated state. So that same sort of summary effort we did with the open-ended question of advancing transportation safety. That was pretty clear to see that folks are very, very concerned about dangerous, aggressive, inattentive, reckless driving. That there was another sub question that ranked those different safety categories. That was the highest ranking: distracted, aggressive driving, and that some increased enforcement is needed there. And then additionally, folks also commented on expanding safety for pedestrians and cyclists, addressing wildlife concerns, some safety related to construction zones, and then ensuring ADA improvements. And then lastly, summarizing all of the open-ended increasing transportation choice questions. A lot of comments on front range passenger rail, a lot of supportive comments on front range passenger rail generally, and especially along Boulder, Pueblo, Denver, increasing rural inner city bus, affordability, connectivity, improving last miles. Those were the type of things those are those themes that were emerging from those open-ended questions. And so one of our final questions was having folks look at a list of CDOT various transportation elements and then rank your satisfaction on those different elements. And I would say CDOT ranked very high. We have the higher, very satisfied and moderately satisfied, higher ranking with snow removal and winter maintenance. Big kudos to our maintenance folks who do that very difficult work in very difficult circumstances and storms and whatnot. And then also decent satisfaction level with park and ride availability. And then on the flip side, you saw higher levels of moderately dissatisfied, very high dissatisfaction with truck traffic, and just the last being pavement condition, which is consistent with all the other elements we found in the survey and the telephone town halls. Lastly is the question. This is the first time we tried this question. I thought the results were pretty interesting too. Here that we had folks fill out a hypothetical budget for transportation, and so folks could had a slider question there where they could have I could allocate a hypothetical budget to these different categories, and again, consistency throughout the survey, where the majority, and this is the statewide average, the majority of folks allocated their hypothetical budgetary amounts to pavement repair and maintenance. What's also pretty interesting is people were generally pretty evenly distributed among sidewalks, among safety improvements. Passenger rail was also something that folks thought was a priority and should get some attention there. Transit, and then highway expansion, adding more lanes was also something that folks allocated their funding to. So again, this is just our surveys that we do are real sentiment based, and so very, very interesting findings. And when you think about what we do with this information. I think this information seems to be very consistent with our thoughts in terms of how we move forward in terms of building out our statewide plan and making sure that we're consistent with our policy directive 14 goals and our it seems like generally the sentiment of Coloradoans is that CDOT's policy directive 14 goals seem to be something that they're supportive of. And so we use this information to further confirm that. And as we build out our 10-year plan, we'll build our 10-year plan, making sure that the projects in it are consistent with the PD 14 goals. So with that, I will just put up my contact information if you have any further questions, and take any questions if there are any questions.
Hey, any questions or comments on the plan? I did read through the 2050 plan, statewide plan, last night. One comment I had was on the freight portion, which was the very last page in the deal. It mentions addressing freight issues in the mountains and the Front Range. For Eastern District especially, freight is a big issue, and the quality of the roads to support that freight. I'd like to see it be a statewide priority for freight traffic and freight improvements, and not be just highlighting the mountain corridor and the Front Range metro areas. It's a concern when you highlight an area when a lot of the freight moves through Eastern Colorado to get to those areas, and we have safety concerns and quality of the system concerns, and would like to see improvements to connect to the neighboring states that are doing improvements to interstate standards on their highways that connect to Eastern Colorado. So, Darius.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for that comment. I think that's probably one of the areas that we can incorporate as we do the public comment process, because we do want to make sure that that's included on there. And you're absolutely right that that is a major concern out on the Eastern Plains, and we'll see what we can do to update that. And most of this stuff should be aligned with the already adopted freight plan. So appreciate that comment, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any other comments on the 2050 plan and feedback? I would encourage everybody to read the plan and make comments for the statewide plan. I'm going to have to jump off. I had something come up, so Holly will take over for the remainder of the meeting. So, Darius.
Yeah, I just wanted to end, Mr. Chair and Madam Vice Chair, by saying that we have the comment form online, and as Aaron and Marissa mentioned, we'll be sending that out, and happy to hear any comments on there as we finalize this information, go through the end portion of this entire planning process for this cycle.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Gary. We're going to go on now to our last item, which is the aeronautics program overview with David Ulane.
Well, good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Thanks, Madam Vice Chair. Appreciate the opportunity and the invitation to brief you all on what our little aeronautics division is up to within CDOT. And hopefully everybody on the call was at least aware that CDOT does things with airplanes. We're not a big group. There's only 9 of us at present, but if you missed it, I'll put it up in the chat. It was really cool. Marshall Zellinger from Channel 9 did a story about our division a couple of weeks ago, and how surprised he was to learn that we actually do some things with aviation here at CDOT. So again, appreciate the opportunity. So if we go to the next slide, Aaron, I'd appreciate that. Our little division, I won't read this to you. We, in essence, work to support airports and aviation across Colorado as part of the state's multimodal transportation system. And I'll get into how we accomplish that exactly a little bit later in my presentation. But We're also tasked under state statute with promoting aviation safety as well as aviation education. And we really take both of those missions to heart. Colorado, with our topography, is really a challenging place to fly in a general aviation aircraft. And we take our safety mission very seriously. And we'll talk about some of the cool things we do that are unique to help support that. So we can go to the next slide. Our division is really unique, not just within CDOT, but within state government as a whole. As the division director for the aeronautics group, I have an informational reporting line to Executive Director Lou, but in my role, our division is actually accountable to and overseen by the 10-member Colorado Aeronautical Board, which, just like the Transportation Commission, it's a Type 1 board whose members are appointed by the governor and confirmed by the Senate. With the exception of one member I'll talk about in a minute here. And that's the group, this is the group that oversees us. They determine where the discretionary part of our budget is invested. They work to support policy issues across Colorado, advise the governor on aviation policy issues. So these folks represent a lot of different constituencies. We have two that represent airports on the western slope, two that represent airports on the Eastern Plains. We have one from the Airport Operators Association, one from the Pilots Association, and then legislation was passed last year that actually added 3 new members to our board, 2 that represent communities impacted by busy general aviation airports. So those 2 folks are from the Front Range here. And then we also now have an ex officio or non-voting member from the Colorado Department of Public Health and the Environment. So just a quick snapshot of the board that we report to as our division, and really a great group of folks that are interested in making aviation as safe and efficient as we can for the entire state. Go to the next slide. So here's just a real quick overview of our airport system. I know a lot of folks, you always think about Denver International and Centennial and some of the busier airports like Colorado Springs, but we work to support all 76 of the public use airports across the state. 14 of those have commercial service, but the remainder of those are smaller general aviation airports, everything from Springfield way down in the southeast corner of the state up to Rangeley and Walden up in the far reaches of the western and northern parts of the state. And even though a lot of these airports don't support commercial air service, they are very, very important resources for their local community, providing everything from access to the broader transportation system. Right now, things like aerial firefighting, the airport in Meeker right now is just being completely consumed with firefighting activity with some of the new fires up there. So all of these airports really provide a lot of great services to their community, even if you don't hear of them or know of them. So we work hard to support all of these. Go to the next slide, Aaron. Just a quick snapshot. I won't read this to you. You can get a quick overview of our airport system. The only number that's a little bit different now, 2 numbers, we actually have 55 airports now with on-site weather reporting and 60 airports that offer aviation fuel to the general public. The other number I'd point out here that's very interesting is 49. That is the number of airports we have in Colorado that are in the federal, it's called the NIPIAS. It's the National Plan of Integrated Airport Systems. Those are the airports that are in the Federal Aviation Administration's plan and are thus eligible for federal funding. In Colorado, federal funding for airports is a little bit different than it is on the highway side. Federal funding does not flow through our division. We don't touch a single dollar of federal airport money. All of the grants from the FAA flow in Colorado directly to the airports that apply for those funding from the feds. Go to the next slide. So let's talk a little bit about how we're funded. Not only are we governed in a little bit of a unique way, we're also funded fairly uniquely as well. Our division is funded exclusively and only by the 3 state aviation fuel taxes collected in Colorado. We don't get any general fund money. We don't, as I just noted, don't receive any federal money. We don't get any other CDOT funding. So there are 3 aviation fuel taxes in Colorado. And again, every penny of these accrue to our division. The biggest one you can see that accounts for 93% of our revenue is the 2.9% state sales tax applies to all jet fuel sold in Colorado. And Colorado is a little bit unique because the commercial airlines are not exempt from paying that tax. So you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out which airport in Colorado generates the vast majority of our revenue. And of course, that's Denver International that accounts for about 80% of our division's revenue. This year, Denver is on track to, and their airlines are on track to sell almost 500 million gallons of jet fuel, and so that certainly has a positive impact on our revenue for our division. If you're a non-airline user of jet fuel, like a corporate aircraft or some of those folks, you also pay 4 cents a gallon in addition to the 2.9% retail. And then for those of us that fly small single-engine piston aircraft, the flowage fee is 6 cents a gallon. So all told this year, this fiscal year, that results in about a $55 million total revenue stream to our division. We're continuously appropriated, so as the money comes in, it goes right back out the door. So we're not subject to the normal budget cycles of the general fund, which makes our life pretty easy, especially in the current environment. We can go to the next slide, Aaron. So the way we put that money out the door is
David,
prescribed by.
I wanted to
Yes,
ask,
go ahead.
on that aviation sales tax, so El Paso County has two airports, a private,
Correct.
and the Colorado Springs one. Some of that comes down to the counties, or am I right?
It does, and that's a perfect segue, Holly, into my next slide. I'll talk about how that money goes right back out the door. So that's a great point. So state statute provides that right off the bat, under a formula, roughly 2/3 of all of the revenue that we collect is dispersed every month by us right back to the airport where the fuel was sold. And that airport, so in El Paso County, that would be Colorado Springs and the Meadow Lake Airport. Those airports can use that fuel flowage disbursement for whatever they want, as long as they use it on the airport for aviation purposes. And so just like most of our revenue comes from Denver International Airport, the vast majority of our tax disbursements go back to Denver International Airport. And typically, one of the reasons that the airlines have not barked too loudly about paying state aviation fuel tax here is Denver International uses our fuel tax disbursement as a credit against the landing fees that the airlines would pay at Denver International Airport. So they get a direct benefit from the fuel tax that they pay when they fly out of DIA. So the cool part about all of that is the 30%. That's the part that under state statute, our board has really broad discretion on how we invest that to support the aviation system across Colorado. And then we run a very, very lean ship. We have 9 of us on our team, soon to be 10. We're about ready to add a new planning manager position to us. Our administrative costs actually run about 2% right now of our total program. So we take great pride in trying to invest every penny we can back into the system rather than administrative costs. We can go to the next slide, Aaron. So the biggest part of our discretionary, that 30% of that discretionary program, is also driven by state statute, and we are required to have what we call our CDAG program, our Colorado Discretionary Aviation Grant Program. And this is the biggest part of that 30% that our team works to put grants from our division out to these publicly owned airport sponsors so that they can accomplish a variety of different airport improvements, everything from pavement maintenance to snow removal equipment to weather reporting to aircraft rescue and firefighting vehicles. All kinds of things are eligible for funding from our program. We have a couple of different components, and I'll focus a little bit on this because this is pretty important. We have what we call our state and local program. That's that first line of this table here. And then we have what we call our federal match program. So this year, our total investment in airports for 2025 is just shy of $19 million. And you can see roughly 75% of that, about 16 million, is our state and local program. That funding is going to airports that are not either eligible for federal funding or to projects that are not eligible for federal funding or just don't rise to the level of being something that the FAA would like to fund. So I'll show a map here in a little bit, but our board has historically, over our 32-year history, been very, very passionate about supporting the smaller general aviation airports across Colorado. In fact, the example I like to use this year, of that $16 million, our largest grant in our division's history was awarded earlier this year to Jackson County to completely rehabilitate the runway up in Walden, which is a very important airport because it's so isolated. It's the only airport for a number of miles up there, and our board was very passionate about making sure we kept that airport in great shape. So that's where that money goes. It's typically on a 90-10 split, 90% state, 10% local folks. So you can see how that worked out this year. And then the other component to our grant program is what we call our federal match. When an airport receives funding from the FAA, that is typically given at a 90% federal, 10% local match. What our federal match program will do is we will pay for half of the airport's 10% match up to $250,000 a year. So we have a couple of different programs this year, the regular airport improvement program funding, which has been in place for a number of decades with FAA. And then, of course, we're in the final years of some additional FAA funding that was made possible through the bipartisan infrastructure law. So you can see there this year, a little bit of a typo, it's not 39 airports. This year, our board has approved 58 discretionary grants to a total of 48 of our 76 public use airports. So we really work hard to touch all of those. And the cool number is, if you look down at the very bottom and you look at how we are able to leverage federal funds, we have over $126 million of investment in those 48 airports this year. That does not include Denver. So really some cool funding coming into airports here in Colorado. So I will pause there, Madam Vice Chair, and see if there's any questions on the grant program, because I know that's a lot of info to digest.
Do we have any questions on the grant program?
You guys are a little let me get off easy this morning. All right, cool.
We are so far, yes.
Well, that's good. Well, I'll keep moving because I know you're at the end of your meeting. So real quickly, this is the grant. You can see the blue is where we put in state and local grants this year. And then I think it's yellow. I'm partially colorblind. I yell at our communications guy all the time for not picking colors I can see real well. But you can see we've really done and touched every corner of the state with our division funding this year. We're really proud of that, and our board is as well. We can go to that next slide. So some of the other things we do to support aviation in Colorado, again, to our thing on to promote aviation safety, we publish second from the right there. We publish an airport directory for our pilots, providing a lot of detailed information about how to fly safely in Colorado. We also publish on the far right an aeronautical chart that's got a lot of information about how to fly safely in Colorado's high country. We partner with Colorado Pilots Association to do some cool things there. And then we do an annual report that's really great. I'll put a link up to that too. You can see all the other cool things we do. And then we also publish a legislative district map for the state that overlays the state legislative districts with airports, so everybody can know who their legislator is, and more importantly, legislators can know who the airports are that they have in their districts. So pretty cool stuff we put together there. Go to the next slide. One of the other very cool things that we work to promote, again, when you're a pilot, I don't know how many folks, if any of you are all pilots, but the weather information that you get before a flight is gold. And it is the most important thing you as a pilot can have in your hand before you decide to undertake or not undertake a flight, especially here in Colorado. So we work to support a very robust network of aviation weather stations. They're called AWOS, Automated Weather Observing Systems. You can see the blue dots all over the state where we help support those. You can see the general aviation airports and the red, the commercial service airports that have those. So again, we've got really great weather all across Colorado. And the cool thing is this weather data is not just for aviation. This weather data feeds into the National Weather Service and NOAA and is used for all of the weather modeling for everything weather related, not just for aviation. So very cool there. The last one at the bottom, weather cameras. Colorado, we were the very first state outside of Alaska to have weather cameras. In a very unique partnership, our board approved over the course of 3 years a $775,000 contribution from us to the FAA, kind of backwards from how it would normally go, for the FAA to come down and put weather cameras at key places in Colorado. And if we can go to the next slide, this is really cool. So what a weather camera will do, here's the one up on Levita Pass, which is a very frequently used low pass in southern Colorado by pilots, is it will show you on the left what the weather is today and what it looks like on a perfectly clear day. So before a pilot goes flying, they can not only get the weather information, which is that numerical code up at the top, they can also now see and get visual context I love this picture because I won't read that weather forecast to you, but to decode that for pilot speak, it's basically saying the sky is clear and the visibility is greater than 10 statute miles, which if you look at that picture, it sure is. But if you look closely, you can see that the pass down below is completely socked in by fog. And so this is really cool. The pilot might look and say, oh, wow, it's a beautiful day at La Vita Pass, but nope, down below in the pass, it's really not. So this is a cool thing that pilots now have access to at 43 different locations in Colorado. And we really paved the way for the rest of the continental United States to have these. And we're really important. I'm a pilot. I was very passionate about this in my 35 years of flying. I've unfortunately lost friends and colleagues to aircraft accidents, and our team and our board, we know somewhere, somehow, and we'll never know about it, a pilot is going to take a look at this tool and decide not to go flying and may survive as a result. So this is something that we're very passionate about, and we're eager to put into place. We keep on moving. Couple of other things we do. We publish, and we just updated this in April. We update this every 5 years. We work to quantify the economic impact of aviation across Colorado, and it went up about 20% since our study in 2020, which was the last one we did. Airports across Colorado support over almost $69 billion of total economic output, of which Denver International alone accounts for about 2/3 of that. So Denver International is not only the biggest aviation economic engine in the state, but in terms of raw dollars, they are the biggest single economic engine in the state. And so we're very proud to work to support that and help everybody understand the economic impact. So you can see there, if you're interested in checking that out, coloradoaviationsystem.com. We also worked and prepared very detailed reports for every one of our airports to get individual reports about their jobs, payroll, and economic output that they can use back in their local community to articulate that to their folks. We go to the next slide. You all just got done talking about updating the statewide transportation plan. Guess what? We have a plan too. And for us, it's called the Colorado Aviation System Plan. We update this on a 10-year tempo, and it helps guide us in terms of policy, investment, where we put our funding, and the things that are important to us to make sure that our aviation system is the best one it can be. Just like on the highway side, the needs far outstrip the resources. So we make sure that we're very particular about investing our money, our little bit of money, where it goes to make big things. And we can talk about the next slide, Aaron. Very much like the statewide transportation plan, we have the exact same goals for the aviation side that CDOT has on the highway side: safety and efficiency, access and mobility, economic sustainability, and system viability. So when we do our grant making, we look at our grants through this lens. In fact, we're about to provide our annual report on how our grants have aligned this year with our system goals to our board here at a meeting in a couple of weeks. So we definitely don't just throw money out the door willy-nilly. We have a very prescriptive and organized way on how we do that. Go to the next slide. But the next thing we're really excited about is aviation is really on the cusp of some very cool developments. Since the Wright brothers flew 120 plus years ago, airplanes have been powered by fossil fuel, either jet fuel or aviation gasoline, and that is changing rapidly. And it is the most exciting time to be in aviation, I got to tell you, as a dork like me. The things that are happening in aviation technology right now haven't happened since the late 1950s, when commercial aircraft became jet powered rather than piston powered. And when that happened in the late 50s, everything changed. Everybody had to rethink airport infrastructure, environment, noise, air traffic control, airport infrastructure. Everything changed with the advent of the jet aircraft. And that's going to happen again here, because now we're seeing a new generation of battery electric aircraft, hydrogen hybrid aircraft, turbine hybrid aircraft, similar to the concept you would see in a Prius or a Chevy Bolt. Some of that technology is starting to make its way into aviation as the industry is really working to lower its environmental footprint, become more carbon neutral, and do what they can to do that. But it's tough with aviation because of the requirements and all those kinds of things. So we are working as a division to see how can we support new aircraft like this. The Pipistrel Velis is a battery electric general aviation training aircraft. It's very cost effective. It's very quiet. And it's something that our flight schools here in Colorado that do a lot of flight training are very interested in seeing how this plays out. So we can go to the next slide, Aaron. This one is really cool. The Bristol Energic was actually at Centennial Airport here in July. It was very, very cool. One of our new community board members, Bree Lehman from up in Lafayette, actually got to take a flight in it. It was very cool. When it is idling on the ramp, the only thing you hear is a whisper from the propeller. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. I've never seen a battery electric airplane actually fly until this event, and it's very cool. Centennial Flyers, which is a flight school at Centennial Airport, is the first launch customer. They've bought 2 of these that will soon be in action. So they don't have a lot of range. They can't go very far, but when you're just doing your practice takeoffs and landings in the pattern at a busy airport, this is the perfect airplane, and it's the perfect airplane to help address some of the community concerns that have really come to the forefront in the last couple of years with the noise and the overflights of training aircraft. So anyway, we're really excited to partner with airports to see how our division can support the new infrastructure that's going to be needed to take these airplanes into the fleet and get them out flying more frequently. So we're excited about that. And we can go to the next slide there, Aaron. Again, hydrogen hybrid fuel cell batteries are not going to work for a big airplane. All you would do is have an airplane full of batteries and it would have no room for people. And that's kind of pointless when you're trying to get cargo and people around. So Zero Avia is partnered with Alaska Airlines. They're converting one of their former regional airline aircraft to a hydrogen hybrid, where you will use a hydrogen fuel cell to generate electricity rather than a battery. And they're actually flying this airplane today with that hybrid powertrain on one side and the traditional turbo prop aircraft engine on the other side. So really cool developments. But again, we're going to have to rethink, how do you store and dispense hydrogen at an airport safely? How do you use aircraft firefighting equipment to deal with hydrogen rather than fuel? So all these new things that we're going to have to help airports think about with this new technology. We can go to the next slide. So what we did back in 2023, knowing that all of this was coming down the pike, our division, we were the first state in the United States to partner with the National Renewable Energy Lab right here in Colorado. So cool that they're in our own backyard to help us do an alternatively powered aircraft study that we are about to release. I've got a brief Executive Director Lou on that next week before we release it publicly, but soon thereafter we will share this with everybody, and it gives a lot of great insight into the technical aspects of the things that we as a division, as airports, as airframers, as users have to think about what we need to do to start accommodating these aircraft in our system and how we get ready to support these. So we're excited about leveraging what we've learned from the NREL study to really start investing in these new, quieter, cleaner, more efficient aircraft. We love it. Our board's excited about it. We can't wait. So we can go to the next slide, because that's really about it. That's all I have there. So other thing we're working on, sustainable aviation fuel. That's fuel that's made from things other than fossil fuel stocks, other than petroleum pulled out of the ground. It can be waste oils. It can be agricultural waste. Colorado does not have currently a lot of the raw material that is the most efficient to make sustainable aviation fuel with, but we're very excited to see how this might come down the pike. Telluride Airport was the first airport in the state to sell sustainable aviation fuel. It's in a mix of 30% sustainable fuel, 70% traditional neat jet fuel. And if we go to the next slide, their pioneering groundwork really has lent the way to more airports doing that. We now have 6. I won't spend any time on this, but it talks a little bit about how the cycle of how sustainable aviation fuel is made from waste products into getting it into the airplane wing. I love it because we don't have to invent a new tax structure, which we'll have to do for hydrogen and some of these other sources since we're funded by fuel taxes. So Aaron, we can go to the next slide. So that's it right now. Again, we have a lot of folks interested in that. We have 6 airports selling sustainable aviation fuel, and a lot of folks, Southwest, United, working on it. Avfuel just noted a new partnership with Suncor on a terminal for sustainable aviation fuel here in Colorado. We're excited about that. And then Gevo is a company based here in the tech center. They don't have any production facilities here in Colorado, but they are developing sustainable aviation production facilities around the globe. And it's kind of cool to have that company based right here in the Denver area. So That's really it. I am happy to answer any questions. I know I went a little long. I'm sorry, I can't help it. I just love what we do, but happy to answer any questions, and feel free to reach out afterwards. And I'm happy to give this presentation to any of your teams if that's of value later on. So again, Madam Vice Chair, Aaron, thank you for the opportunity to brief you all on this. We love what we do, and we're proud to be part of the CDOT team.
Well, thank you. So I was going to say one of the things we have to deal with as county commissioners is the navigation easements. We have the Air Force Academy on the west side of Colorado Springs. Interestingly, when they take off, when they're training their cadets, they have to land and take off again in southeast El Paso County. Then they fly out over Calhan, where if they have an emergency, they have a grass runway where they can land their plane. And then, of course, they come back into town and have to land up against the mountains. So it's interesting to watch them when they start training on their planes, to see them all taking off, because I live right by there. Are there any other questions? Okay, well, thank you, David. I enjoyed that. So it was very interesting.
Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, so our final agenda item is there any other business for the good of the order here? And Darius or Aaron, what day is our next meeting?
I believe it's September 4th, which is the Thursday after Labor Day.
Yeah, so we'll have our next meeting on September 4th. That will be virtual because our next live one is not until October. Right. And seeing no other further questions, I guess we will be adjourned. Everybody have a great day. We appreciate all of CDOT and their support in the projects lately we're getting done.
Thank you.
Okay, have a good day, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.